Hello, this is James Arthur Ray, the author of the New York Times bestseller Harmonic Wealth, as well as my latest book, Life Unleashed: How to Live Life on Your Own Terms, Harness Your Unique Genius, and Have Maximum Impact on the World. One of the things we've been doing in this series over the last couple of weeks is exploring the topic of stress, and not how to avoid it, but how to reframe it and how to utilize it to your advantage. Because you should know by now, and by the way, if you haven't watched the previous videos, this is a series and they unfold in succession, so go back and catch up. But you should know by now, if you have watched them, that stress is not the enemy. I talk about that in my book, Life Unleashed. I hope that you've read it. I'm going to dive deeply. You and I together will dive deeply into the strategy, skills, and mindset necessary to not only minimize your stress, but to utilize your stress to your advantage in my new upcoming event, Life Unleashed Live. You can find out more about that at the end of this video. And I hope that you will. You'll be happy when you do. Now, we've explored the research of endocrinologist Hans Selye. And we've also explored the research of Carol Dweck, the psychologist from Stanford University, and how they have helped us reframe stress. We've talked about the positive stress that you want in your life, called eustress by Selye, versus distress that causes dis-ease. We've talked about the mindsets of Carol Dweck, a growth mindset that compels you to grow and to move forward versus a fixed mindset that causes you to be miserable, quite frankly, disengaged, not enthused, and disempowered. Remember, we discussed that research proves that 71% of the people of North America are not engaged, inspired, and enthused in their job. Why? Well, is it possible that we've been sold a bill of goods? Yes, it's not only possible, it's absolutely certain. We've been told that we're supposed to reach a place in life where life will be ultimately and eventually problem and pain-free. And yet, how long have you been alive? How many years? And how close are you to that one? You see, because you grow and develop and advance in the crucible of challenge. If you're with me, are you with me? Does that make sense? You grow, advance, and develop in the crucible of challenge. It's in those times where you're facing stressors, where you're pushing up against the envelope of your own potentiality and capability, that you develop more resources. You become more resourceful. You become more creative, innovative, and ultimately more inspired. Whether you're consciously aware of it or not, you do not want an easier life, because life is not meant to be easy. It's meant to be meaningful. And so psychologists talk a lot about coping strategies. Coping strategies basically are how we are wired to cope with stressors, things that create stress in our lives. And remember, the so-called positive things, according to Selye, create stress as much as the so-called negative things. So you're not ever going to get away from stress. So you might as well learn how to utilize it to your advantage. Coping strategies. There are two types, basically. There is what is called in psychology a regressive coping strategy, and there's a transformative or a transformational coping strategy. Now, you can imagine, I'm sure, just by the titles of those two, which one is more desirable, more empowering, and more powerful. It's obvious, right? But what are the characteristics of a regressive strategy? Well, a regressive strategy, when faced with stress, and this might likely, most probably, is an individual with a fixed mindset that we talked about in our last session. A regressive strategy, what do they do when things become stressful? They turn to the bottle, whereas a transformative strategy turns to a book. They turn to a bottle. They turn to the television. They turn to, time wasters like surfing the internet and playing video games online, all the while thinking that those things are creating downtime and recuperation. They're not. And they're not creating happiness either. Psychologist Csikszentmihalyi, which I mentioned in an earlier session, Csikszentmihalyi, did exhaustive research over a multitude of years with hundreds of people where he would call them at various times throughout the day randomly. What are you doing? Well, right now I'm watching television. Are you happy? No, not really. Another time he would call them, what are you doing? Well, I'm at work right now and I'm really facing this challenge. I don't know how I'm going to get through it. I'm trying to be creative and come from a new angle. Are you happy? Yeah. Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I kind of am. And so those regressive strategies do not bring happiness. According to Csikszentmihalyi's research, proven conclusively that we are not happy when we're at leisure, regardless of what we've been sold as a bill of goods. You know, 99% of the time when I interview people, what do you want? I want more free time. But research proves that you're not happy when you have free time. Not really. You're really, truly engaged, inspired, enthused, happy, fulfilled when you're going after something, when you have a compelling pull towards something grander and greater. Does that make sense to you? But you know what's really ironic? Is that after all the research that Csikszentmihalyi did, he went back to the people and he said, hey, would you rather have more leisure or more work? And they said, oh, more leisure. Hey, well, wait a second. Don't you remember all those times I called you when you were at leisure and you said you weren't happy? You see, we're so heavily conditioned in a mentality that we want more free time, we want more leisure. You don't. Why? Because you're a spiritual being having a physical experience. And as we've discussed many times, and I'll repeat it again and again, spirit has one objective: fuller expansion, experience, and expression. The regressive mindset. What are you doing right now? Well, I'm watching Dancing with the Stars. Are you happy? Well, I don't know, not really. Regressive mindset turns to the bottle. A transformative mindset turns to a book. Regressive mindset turns to vegetation. Oh, I got to veg. I'm just exhausted. A transformative mindset goes to workout, goes to the gym, gets the endorphins pumping, gets the dopamine flooding through the brain, the serotonin, the norepinephrine, maybe even the anandamide if you really get into that super flow state. Those are topics for another day. The transformative mindset takes stressors and transforms them through action and work. And it goes back to having a growth mindset. If I see everything as an opportunity for development, advancement, and growth, everything, even when it's difficult, even when it's hard, even when it's painful, then I'm going to transform. I'm going to cope through transformation. And psychologists prove time and time and time again, those with a transformative coping mechanism are the ones that are most happy, fulfilled, and engaged, and, by the way, most successful. Regressive coping, which the mass majority have, doesn't work. And that's why so many people are going through life on autopilot, just merely existing versus really living. Big difference. Get the difference? You were born into greatness, and you've been conditioned into mediocrity. Man, I hope you're thinking, because these are game-changing concepts. If you're grabbing them, I hope you're enjoying this series, and I hope I've given you some things to think about. Get to Life Unleashed Live, because we're going to dive much more deeply than we can in a quick couple of minute video here into the strategy, skills, techniques, tactics of living life on your own terms, harnessing your genius, and having maximum impact on the world. Hope I've given you some things to think about. Until we speak again, stay awake, love life, and be epic.